It's almost time to go to the polls. We'll soon know if our next Prime Minister will be this man or this man. I think it's fair to say that neither of them are particularly liked. But regardless of what you think of them or their policies, either Boris Johnson or Jeremy Corbyn will be our next Prime Minister for potentially the next 5 years.
I can't believe you've done this.
And because I don't think we've heard enough about it since 2016, let's take a look at some of the Brexit scenarios that could play out when we wake up with a new government on Friday morning. He called the election to do one thing.
Let's get Brexit done. Get Brexit done. To get Brexit done. We're going to get Brexit done.
And that's exactly what he's going to do. With a working majority in the House of Commons, Prime Minister Boris Johnson will be able to push through the withdrawal agreement he negotiated with the EU, with the first votes on that likely to happen before Christmas.
And you won't get any presents from me.
Then by the 31st of January, we'll be out of the EU and Brexit will be done, right?
Wrong.
Because Brexit isn't done on the 31st of January. What they've just done, that was the easy bit. Now we have to negotiate our future trading relationship with the EU.
So does that mean we won't have any trees?
And that could take a long time. A similar trade deal that the EU made with Canada took 7 years to thrash out, and a hypothetical trade deal between the United States and the EU fell apart totally when Donald Trump came into office.
It's a hoax. It's a hoax. It's a big fat hoax.
But Boris Johnson wants it done by the end of 2020, and on the campaign trail, he's promised that he's not going to extend it past that date.
Another Brexit referendum means more delay, it means more uncertainty, it means more acrimony and division in our country when this country is aching to move on.
Most experts say that isn't possible. So without enough MPs in Parliament to block it, we could be heading for a no-deal Brexit at the end of next year.
I think the people in this country have had enough of experts.
But that is the most likely scenario we will wake up to on Friday morning. The last time Labour were ahead in the polls was in July. That was just before Boris Johnson came into power. So most polls now point to a Conservative majority. But it won't take much for things to change. Just a few votes and we could be back in hung Parliament territory. But this time, if the Tories don't get an overall majority, it's unlikely they'll be able to sustain a government.
Well, well, well. How the turntables...
We saw the chaos in Parliament just before the election was called.
Behave yourself! Be a good boy, young man!
That was because the Tories didn't have a majority anymore. They lost the support of the Northern Irish DUP with their new Brexit deal.
It would be bad for Northern Ireland economically and will weaken the foundations of this great United Kingdom.
And they kicked out a bunch of Remain supporting MPs from their party.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
If they don't get an overall majority, they have no natural partners because every other party in Parliament is opposed to their Brexit deal. So if there is a hung Parliament, the most likely scenario is that Jeremy Corbyn becomes Prime Minister, backed up by the Scottish National Party.
And I just let you know this, I've not come here to deliver milk or to hide in a fridge.
That could happen even if the Tories get the most seats. That's because if you look at the likely composition of Parliament, the number of MPs who could potentially support Corbyn on certain things would outnumber the ones who could potentially support the Conservatives.
Anyone else starting to find Jeremy Corbyn really sexy?
But support from the SNP won't come without a cost.
It is time for Scotland to be an independent country.
Scotland voted to remain in the EU, and in the eyes of the SNP, they're being dragged out of Europe against their will. So they want another shot at independence with another referendum.
I mean, how many referendums do you need to see before you accept what people are telling you?
So let's assume that Jeremy Corbyn agrees to that. Here's what would probably happen. Labour have promised to go back to the EU to renegotiate a new Brexit deal, one which maintains a similar trading relationship to what we have now. That would mean staying inside the customs union and keeping closely aligned with the single market. Do you know who won't like that?
It is not Brexit.
That deal will then be put to a referendum, with Jeremy Corbyn staying neutral. The Labour Party will then implement whatever the result of that referendum is. They say it's going to bring the country together. But it won't. When people voted for Brexit, very few people would have voted for the kind of Brexit that Jeremy Corbyn wants to get. That's because it keeps us within all of the EU rules and regulations without any say on them. The referendum would be a vote between remaining in the EU and being half in, half out. Boris Johnson, Michael Gove, Nigel Farage and the rest of the Brexiteers aren't going to support it. And it's not going to bring the country back together.
Do you know, I'm so terribly undecided.
During this campaign, both of the main parties have given us the impression that Brexit is going to get done in the next few months. The truth is that Brexit is nowhere near finished. Ahead of us, we've got potentially years of negotiations to figure out our future relationship with Europe, or another referendum, which could leave us even more divided than we are now.